Okay, we are live, Tavia.
Wonderful. And I'm just going to double check and make sure that we are on Facebook.
And we are on our YouTube channel and both of our Facebook pages. And this is Connections with Tavia and The McClish, December 4th, 2022. It's our second maiden voyage, so to speak. Our first Thanksgiving broadcast was limited, but it still went forward and I think fairly well without too many hitches, right?
I don't think it was limited at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was great. I mean, we weren't able to upload to YouTube, but it was great.
Now we can. Now we're
Now
good.
we can. Now we're everywhere. How are you today, Tom?
I'm really good. I got up this morning at 2:30 to travel back from Texas to St. Louis, and so I'm operating on a lot of caffeine. So I'm
That's
feeling great. Yeah,
And I'm just going to call myself out that you were traveling and airplanes and such, and I was not, and I was still late.
that's okay. You're in California, and we all know that Californians are different, right, than the rest of the population, in a good way.
I feel like we
That's a good thing.
I was still late. Anyways, what do we have on our things that we want to discuss today, Tom?
Well, I know we talked about the fact that at this time of year, so we just got past Thanksgiving. Now we're heading towards Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and it strikes me that one of the things that seems very high on most people's list, beyond what they're getting as far as gifts for family and friends, is stress, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in that order, but certainly those three things seem to be in the mix, the marinade, so to speak. And I mean, I can tell you at the airport today, I was.
Yeah,
You do not want to be anywhere near an airport. Yeah, do not go near the airport. It is absolutely out of control. There's so much anger and discontent and I mean, it's really very difficult over there. I know in our airport, we have a lot of construction going on in St. Louis, and it's just a terrible scene. I mean, it's I don't know why so many people are traveling right now. I really don't. But apparently, it's like after the COVID scare eased up just a little bit, it's like everyone decided to get a plane ticket. I'm not even sure they know where they're going. I think they're just going to fly. Might not even know the destination.
I'm curious, like, what do you do in those situations when there is just absolute chaos going on around you? Because I think we can easily find ourselves a part of that chaos and contributing to that chaos. I know I have. And I know I've also helped counterbalance that energy as well. So I'm just curious.
Well, I can tell you this morning, this is really a weird situation, but I have never been to St. Louis Airport where the main parking garage was full. And so when I went a few days ago, there was a big sign that said garage open. So I got to the garage and there was a construction person who said, "You can't park here, it's closed." And I said, "Okay, well, the sign said it was open, but where do I go?" So he told me to go to this certain lot, which I had
Mhm.
never heard of or seen in 30 years of being here. So I went to that lot. I came back today, and there are apparently like 20 different parking lots around the airport. And so they all have shuttles. And I mean, I didn't know which shuttle to take. So anyway, I finally, through some errors, got on the correct shuttle, and we were going to this shuttle went to like 3 or 4 different lettered parking lots, and the lady that was driving, for whatever reason, really didn't like me. So we got to the lot, which was E, like Edward. She dropped me off, and I got in my car, and I noticed that her shuttle was just sitting there, and there was no one else in it. So I thought that was a little strange. So I took a few minutes to put my bags in and do all this. I back out. I pull out to go towards the exit of this parking lot, and she's following me. And so I turn to go towards the exit, and she pulls up in front of me. And so I back up because I'm like, that's really weird. I'm not even connecting this right away. So then I reverse and let her go. She reverses. And so then we start playing this game of chicken. I'm like, what is going on? And I gotta tell you, it was very strange, very disconcerting. And so to answer your question, I just thought, I'm just gonna there's a book out that was with Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry, I believe. I'm not going to swear that's the right author, but it was called "What Happened to You" instead of "What's Wrong with You." And I just started thinking with her, like, what happened to you either years and years ago or this morning or last week that would really make you so angry that you were going to play a game of chicken with this old beat up guy in a Subaru Outback that's like 8 years old with 200,000 miles in your huge, shuttle vehicle. I'm just thinking, what my initial reaction was, as a gorilla, I thought, hey, I mean, this is really weird, but if you want to have a showdown, but then I thought, no, this is ridiculous. Why is this lady, what happened to her? And that kind of put me on a bit of a different track. So, but I was disconcerted for a while after dealing with that because I haven't seen anything quite that bizarre in a long time.
So asking that question, what happened to her? Did that offer an opportunity for you to have compassion?
It did. I mean,
That's
because
awesome.
I realized that there's no person in their right mind that would challenge someone to a duel in a parking lot in that
Yeah,
way if they're operating normally. And so I just realized that. And I was thinking about all of the stress. Like, I'm
yeah,
telling you, the level of stress at that airport was at a 60,000 on a scale of 1 to 10. So
yeah,
I can only imagine that she gets beaten up, verbally
right.
abused by people. And then this guy comes on. I'm already exhausted from getting up at 2:30. I don't have any idea what's going on. And so I'm sure she
Yeah,
wasn't real happy with me. And so, it made more sense as I kind of tried to put the pieces of this puzzle together. And I was just hoping she didn't have a gun or, a pit bull or something that
yeah. I just
so
think it's so easy for us to react and then be a part of the chaos and yeah, all of that. And so I think we can always like just try to cut through the crap and ask that question that you just asked, like what happened to you?
right, right.
And leave space
Well,
for compassion because
it
it's just again, it's so easy to react and to be a part of the chaos.
it puts you on a different trajectory, right? Because you go from anger, and there's signs all over about road rage. And so, it really just moves the needle from rage, anger, disbelief to, this, come on. I mean, this is the bizarre part about the holidays, right? Because this is the time that all you hear about is joy and peace and harmony. And then you have these situations that you see in different settings, and it's confusing and it's disconcerting. And so that's what I know we talked about kind of as one of the themes. And the other part of the theme we talked about was this issue about living in scarcity and lack
Mhm.
versus abundance.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for the average person? And we have a guest today, actually, that's going to talk a little bit about that and how he's sort of changed the trajectory in his family from the usual commercialized version of the holiday to a very different version. And I think, people will find that really interesting to hear. And it's kind of heartening to hear that as well. So
Wonderful. And
especially after being challenged by an airport shuttle van. I mean,
yes.
that's
Yeah, and I just encourage people. I mean, we can find these examples that you just offered in our everyday life. So, especially right now with everybody running around and just hustling to and from and just needing to get here and needing to get there. I invite people to pause and really just check in and ask what is happening, what's going on with this person over here, and take a deep breath and smile.
well, I tell you, the name of our program is Connections. And I was at this workshop over the last few days in Austin, Texas, and it was with, there were about 50, 60 people there. It was for people that are preparing to write a book or have already published a book. But
Mhm.
the thing at the end of it that everyone who spoke, because one of the questions at the very end was, what was your biggest win? Now, this was an amazing conference. I mean, there were so many great things that came out of it. But and I'm not kidding, every single person, and there was at least 8 people that took the microphone and said, I'm going to tell you right now what the win was. And I was thinking, well, it's going to be, you learned about marketing, you learned about how to use, strategies on social media, you learn more about publishing your book on Amazon, things like that are really significant if you're going to write a book. Every single person said it was about the connection, the amazing connections that they made. And they were all talking about the fact that they didn't realize how difficult it had been with COVID, and how they had sort of been sequestered away from other people. And I heard that throughout about, it's amazing, even if it was just one or two people, but just to have that connection. And there were people there that were crying, that, were in a couple cases that were kind of nearing the end of their rope. They just felt that they had been such a failure, that they weren't worthy. And because of the connections they made, it just put them on a completely different path. And I just thought, wow, I mean, it's just interesting to be coming back to do connections today.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Tom. I mean, I think that's what it always boils down to, is connection. That's the most important thing. And I mean, that's been my experience, and what I've heard from others. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And before we bring Sam on, correct? It's Sam?
Sam, it is
Yeah.
Sam.
I'm gonna have Jeremy, if he's listening, tune up turn up my mic again, because I am still sounding a little muffled. Jeremy, do you hear me? Thank you. Thank you. It's distracting. All right. Do we want to bring Sam on, or?
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Here he is.
There he is.
Hi, guys. Tavia, nice to meet you.
Oh,
I've looked
hold on
forward
one
to-
second.
Oh, yeah.
We're-
We're having some feedback. Sam,
I'm gonna turn down.
Here,
How about
let's
that?
disconnect that, and you might want to go out into that room. Take
Oh,
that.
take this with me. Okay.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
So, little technical kamikaze operation, but it's going to work.
Like a charm. I didn't want to look at you anyway. Let me see.
I'm going to take that off for just a second.
What? We wanted a tour
What?
of the studio.
One thing I wanted to mention too, before Sam gets back on, so he can get squared away there, is at the conference, I met a doctor. His name is Dr. Jonathan Edwards. He's an anesthesiologist. He's been practicing medicine for about 20 years, and he wrote a book about suicide. And I know that's a topic near and dear to both of our hearts, and the effect of COVID-19 on suicide, and also the use of a particular psychedelic called ketamine that he believes strongly that can save literally anybody that is feeling suicidal ideations and issues with that, through his work over the last 2 decades, and with a lot of other physicians using psychedelics, that he's found an amazing modality to work with people that are having those issues. So, and he's agreed to be a guest on our show coming up in the first or second quarter of the year.
Fantastic.
He's getting ready to publish a second book too on that. So it'll be really interesting to hear him. But I think Sam is hopefully, hey, Sam.
Hey, I'm back.
All right.
And now you're in the darkness, Sam.
Right? Is it too dark?
Can you, yeah, I think if you
put the light, I had to put the shade down.
Yeah. Okay. But see, as our second maiden voyage, these are the things that we can, issues we can assuage for our.
Yeah. Well, I'm having fun.
It is, I mean, hey, why not, right? I mean, it's better than being at the airport challenged by a woman in a very large shuttle van. I mean, it's okay. That's a little better, Sam. What do you think, Tavia?
We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
Well, great to be on here, and great to meet you, Tavia. Heard
You
a
as
lot
well.
about you and a lot of great things about you. So
Thank you for being here, Sam.
I'm very happy to be here. So, my journey for Christmas, and my journey over the last few years of just really healing myself and connecting to my inner self, this year brings me to Christmas and understanding my emotions and feelings, really about everything about it. I can remember, I remember back as a small child and the excitement around it, getting the gifts and the family that would come in from everywhere, and the nice grand dinners that you would have. And it was amazing. And as I grew a little older, I became a giver. So I loved to give. And I would give of however I could, because it just really felt right, and it felt good. And it also felt like I was able to give back the feeling that I had. So I started to think about that. And as I pondered on, when did it change? When did it change from this period, this spirit of love, to say within up till last year, a feeling of not wanting to do Christmas at all, not liking Christmas. The expectations I built over the last, 30 years raising my children, and the expectations I built into them of what they're supposed to expect out of a Christmas. And a busy life takes away all creativity, and all of a sudden you're on the day before Christmas looking for all the gifts that you've asked a list for from them. And it really, I really realized it's complete removal of what Christmas is about. And all of these actions we're making and purchasing and trying to get the best gift, and it's a waste of energy. To what we're really trying to do is just make some experiences together and love each other. The gifts are really not anything that lasts longer than 6 months usually. So they end up on your shelves. And if you're anyone like myself, I was raised by a father who had a lot of lack in his life early in life. And so he retained a lot of things. And I learned that attachment to things. It's a very, in many ways, it can be good. And in other ways, it can be very unhealthy, because the emotion you think that is in these things are of your loved ones or your family members. As I'd ask my daughter, why you need to clean your room, and she's like, I need to get rid of stuff, and I don't know what to get rid of. And I went in there and I said, well, point something out. Well, like this, and it was this statue she had received from somebody, and it was a gift. And I said, but is it a gift anymore? I mean, is it a gift anymore to you, to where you are feeling this immense love for that person? Or do you just feel that immense love for that person and don't no longer need it? And now you can gift it to somebody else that may, at least you're transferring your intention and love to them. So I don't think it's a bad thing to get rid of those things. The other thing she would say is, well, you spent a lot of money on that. And it just doesn't seem right to get rid of it. And and thinking about that, that's all of our mindsets. We spent something on it. We've invested in it. And so we can't get rid of it, or we can't move on from it. And that's an absolute false. The point is that when it becomes no longer love and more of an obsession, or the inability to let go, which is what we all should do for Christmas, let go. And in that letting go, the real gift comes. The real gift begins, because then you can actually experience Christmas as it should be. And it should be filled with love, joy, peace, with your family.
So, Sam, based on that, what is it that you were thinking about switching up and, maybe doing in some kind of different way this year?
Well, a good friend of mine, knew I was on this journey of simplifying, getting more simplistic. In my mind, I would just like to carry a backpack, but that's probably not all. That's probably not the truth, but it gave me an idea of how can I let go of things that I have invested financially, I have invested with love, I have invested with whatever my intention was. And I no longer use these things. As a matter of fact, most of them I probably haven't seen in years. I myself have kitchen equipment galore. I have 2 cabinets full of kitchen equipment I haven't looked at in over a year, or maybe I only use it once a year. So, and do I really need it that once a year? There are families, there are women, single women with children. They're fathers as well. They're homeless. And some of these places that help them struggle with the essentials of food, let alone equipment that could be used. I could imagine a child of one of these single women coming home from school and having a sandwich maker to be able to make them a sandwich real quick because mom's out trying to, figure out bringing stability into the life. So I think the important thing is when you have these things that you are attached to, and there was an intention behind them, you can take it now and refresh it, clean them up, put a real intention of love behind it, and gift it to places that would need it. The important thing about it, and that I have learned, is when you pick it up, this item, you clean it up because you want it to be clean. You're doing all of these actions out of love. And it's important to understand where you're giving it to, who and what you hope and want for that person who is able to use it once, twice, or whatever. But you're putting the energy of your love in it and turning it to something that's just on a shelf somewhere collecting dust, and really giving it to somebody else that could use it. So that was one of the first things, and I have set many of those things aside, but I also wanted to join my family in, and I have
that's the part I was really curious about is how old you said you have a couple kids?
Yeah, I have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old in college.
So tell us how that meeting went. I'm curious. Something tells me it might have gone a little bit like my encounter with the airport shuttle van this morning, but maybe not.
Yeah, first of all, they say, well, we figured so. It's tight this year. But in all reality, if you think about it, it's always tight every year. So, in talking with them, they understand the spirit of Christmas, and they understand of wanting that feeling of love back, because it's mostly like a menu. Christmas is coming. Here's the menu of what's can be allowable to purchase on the list, or they send you the list from Amazon. And it really just kind of takes the spirit out of all of it. So we have decided that and all the details aren't said. So there's a few out there because I have a diverse family, and it's a divorced family, but we get along very well. And the ideal is for us to take what we have, and that is either time or talent, with what we have in the house, and actually remake something out of it, make something out of it. And listen, we have a lot of artisans. Families have artisans and crafters, and and our grandmothers used to make stoles and mittens, and that's all still there. We just don't use those anymore to gift by doing action and love into something to give to another.
So this is so great, Sam. So you as a family have decided to grab things around the house and to make something from them and then gift them to each other.
Yes.
I love that idea. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I hadn't even thought about that. I've been really honing in with my son, Taylor, who's 8 years old, about the importance of letting things go and giving to those that are in need and that could really benefit from things that he's not using anymore. And I find, it's hard for him to let go and to part with some things. And I'm just being very gentle with him and having the discussion, and happened for years now, that, but we're not using this anymore. So somebody else could really benefit from it and be really excited. And then it creates space for something new to come in for you. And
That's
he's like,
exactly right.
And so he started getting him thinking like, oh, wow, that creating space for something new to come in. That's interesting. I'm like, and then you're also giving and then the receiving. And that's like the natural flow of life. So it's the ongoing discussion that we're having. And I found that this year in particular was a little bit more easy for him to let go of some things and to give
Amazing.
without having this resistance. And I really saw this shift, and it was really beautiful. He just recently gave away his old bike helmet that's in fantastic condition to someone that we consider family, and that looks at Taylor as like an older brother. So, now she gets to benefit from it. But I really, really love your idea of taking things and creating something new from it and then gifting that. I think that's a fantastic idea. I wrote it down so I can add that to my ideas for gift giving. Thank you for that.
Yes. And one thing, trying to let my girls understand in that letting go is reminding them when they received it, how did they feel? What was it joy? Was it excitement? And being able to say, I don't have that anymore, but boy, I could give that to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's the gift.
And I like to go as far as to imagine like how this person is going to feel when they receive this, for free, like this thing that we're donating, like they're going to receive this for free, this wonderful gift that's in really, really good condition. I like to imagine that. And I invite Taylor, my son, to imagine that. Like, can we just imagine how this person is going to feel when they receive this, their reaction, and how much joy it's going to bring them, that they have this new thing that they're like, oh my goodness, like, maybe they weren't even expecting anything this year, or maybe they were, and they're just super happy and joyful from it. So I like to even go that far, like, just envisioning that. And I just feel like that energy in itself, just creates this expansion and this beautiful flow of giving and receiving.
Hey, I think that's a great idea. Even imagining how they would use it,
Yeah.
and how it would bring joy to them, and if it was you getting again, what would you do with it that you may be able to spread that energy to them? So
So Sam, what I didn't hear though is how was the response to your declaration to the family? Was it positive?
Well, it was positive.
Okay.
My daughter's mother she was definitely on board. the girls, they're at a point in their life they just want time with us. They want to spend
That's
time.
nice. That's lovely.
And that's probably because my growth over the last few years, before they didn't want to spend any time with us, but it took a lot for me to get back to myself to say, this stuff is not important. What's important is here and our family members and tribe around us, really. Because that's what makes life. That's what makes experiences. So it has been a really good journey. Overall positive.
Yeah.
Definitely. Tremendously helping me remove things out of my life I just don't need anymore, and being able to help somebody else out. And, and that's just one way to give. There's plenty of places that need volunteers to bring that joy, cooking, baking for these places, or, make a plate of cookies and drop it off at your local fire department. Things like that, just to spread just a little bit of joy and to say,
Yeah. I think that there might be some people tuning in that would say, oh, my kids would never go for this. My kids would never be down for this whatsoever. Yeah, but if you don't have the conversation and start the conversation, then you'll never know. Like I said, my son met me with resistance, and that's okay. But having the conversation and continuing the conversation, now there is actually less resistance. So, I invite people to have the conversation and see where it goes, and be consistent with that conversation, because, sometimes we just have to introduce the idea and let it marinate for a minute.
So, Tavia, it makes me think too about this dichotomy of lack versus abundance and scarcity versus abundance, because it's people that are living from a place of feeling lack and feeling that true gratitude for the things that they do have or the people that they have in their lives, and covering that up or trying to satiate that need with obtaining things, right? Constantly getting things. And the holidays are, frankly, they're a Madison Avenue advertising group's dream, because this is the time when we've just been conditioned mentally that we have to do that, right? Everybody has to get something. The teacher, the postman, or the postal person, or whoever in your life, like, it's everywhere. It's really hard to step back from that and think about that. But a couple things that strike me about it. Michael Beckwith, who's a pastor in Los Angeles, he says, wake up every morning and ask yourself, why am I so lucky? And I thought, that's weird. And when I first heard that, I thought, I just find that really odd. And I tried that. And it's the kind of thing that even if you don't believe it initially, just asking yourself, because when you ask yourself the question, you have no choice but to look around your immediate surroundings, look around at your kids, your partner, your dogs, your cats, lizards, for those who like lizards, birds, whatever, and just the things that you have that you just don't even think about. Like Sam was talking about these items, and it made me think about weddings, right? When, you get married and you have like 2 or 3 of a bowl, or 2 or 3 of a, salad mixer set, and all these different things. And it's just so funny. So what do you do with that? Well, if you look at that, you think, well, gosh, we could give that to the Joneses for their wedding. No, we can't do that, because, the Williamses got us that, right? Or the Jones got, it's just this mindset, as Sam was saying so aptly, that we have to hold on to these things like there are emotions, because a lot of times they sort of come in as emotions, and that's the thing that makes it problematic if we look at them like that. But it also made me think about, Tavia, you and I have I think we have a mutual friend from Georgia who I mentioned last time on Thanksgiving had been to Egypt, I mean, the remotest parts of the desert where people live with absolutely nothing. And
Mhm.
literally the only thing these people could give to her, she was with a group, the only thing they could give, and this was a big gift, was a can of Coca-Cola. And that was huge. But the thing that struck her and really affected her significantly was the fact that all the people in this village were happy. They were content.
Yeah.
They were filled with joy and they were filled with benevolence. Benevolence to the point where they would give something that they really didn't even have to give, which was a Coca-Cola. And they would give that away because these were people that were coming in, that were visitors, and that was how they showed them some benevolence. So, I mean, just to think about people with, nothing. They live in huts. They live in very, very different conditions than what we're all accustomed to. But their mindset is very different day to day,
Yeah.
hour to hour, week to week than a lot of us,
Mhm.
because there's nothing there. They have nothing there, but yet they wake up with the issue or the statement that Michael Beckwith says, ask yourself, why am I so lucky? And apparently they
Yeah.
must do that every day because
Yes.
they seem to be pretty contented. So
Yeah, it's definitely something I practice every day, but I tweak it just a little bit. I ask myself, I feel the lucky with blessed. Why am I so blessed? And I count my blessings. And I look around and I really just hold space for that and allow that energy to expand inside of me and outside of me. And I'll tell you, when I really hone in and practice that one several times a day, it's amazing where that energy takes me that day. I mean, I am in just so much gratitude, and I feel like I am in this flow again of the giving and the receiving, giving, and that's where I like to be. So I know that there are probably a lot of people tuning in that are stressed out with the holidays, and oh, we have to go to this event and bring this and all the gifts, and oh my gosh, it's just a lot. It's a lot. And it's up to you to just hit pause on all of that and to stop and to allow yourself to just be in gratitude and do what you can and not try to live up to some sort of unrealistic expectation. Put your own twist on it. Create something and that's meaningful, that offers connection with you and others. Instead of having to live up to some sort of expectation with some gift that doesn't even mean anything.
well, Sam, what I kind of heard you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was trying to read between the lines a little bit. So it sounded like you were saying maybe years before that, you personally, you and maybe your ex spouse, or your kid's mom, that you were maybe not as available for them years
I
ago.
definitely was not. I didn't allow myself to be available. I I had so much else in my head of the expectations I felt that I had to get done, that you end up in this cycle of your gift becomes almost an order at Christmas time, but I wasn't there experiencing the moment with them,
The
because
present
once I
moment.
purchased the gift, I
Right.
was on to other things.
Right.
I did what was expected. Now I'm moving on with the stuff I got to get done for this or that or whatever. Was not experiencing the moment with
And
them.
and Sam, when we
That's the
talked
difference.
before the podcast, you mentioned something which I just thought really stood out, and I think might impact a lot of people. Is you told me about a time when you were at the St. Louis Zoo,
Yes.
and that I think the way I recall you saying it was like the last thing that you were actually thinking about, what you were seeing and experiencing at the zoo.
Yeah.
Can you talk
Yeah,
about that?
I'll definitely tell you that story. I was in a job that was very stressful. Limited time I could really get away. My children wanted to go to the zoo. My wife at the time wanted to go to the zoo. I wanted to take them to the zoo, but I was so stressed out about taking them because I was going to have to leave work. So we get to the zoo, and because I didn't set fine boundaries, I spent the day not at the zoo. I spent it at work while my family I was just following them around, not experiencing anything.
You were just a body, so to speak.
Just a body.
Yeah.
And what a waste of an opportunity to connect with them, in a great place to connect to them, a zoo. And Christmas is the same thing. I think the expectations of what me as a father had built up in myself of what I should be paying to get them, how much I should spend every year, how much or what I should get, or how can I find this to make them real happy? All of those things are not really the true meaning of Christmas. The true meaning of Christmas is experiencing conversations with them on Christmas Day, experiencing the great past memories that you have together, making food together as a family, not as whatever spouse is usually the ones making it. Turn it upside down, because most likely when you start doing that, you start making experiences of love between each other within the family. Maybe if dad never has cooked Christmas dinner, you should assign him the entire dinner.
Wow.
Because out of that, everyone will gain appreciation for him in the moment, and you'll get to really see if he can cook or not, and whether you can start cooking weekly.
Sam,
Now,
so funny.
Tavia, this
I love
reminds
My
me.
husband. So
Step out of your comfort zone and start cooking.
I can tell you, I don't think that's going to go over, and I'll tell you why. Because Tavia, we both know an individual who actually changed her name from her legal name to a completely different name. It was like very different. And at the same time, she was approaching her husband about this. And she was also going to approach him about like her not cooking dinner like 2 or 3 nights a week. I think it was only 2.
Uh-huh.
So I was imagining this conversation thinking, he's going to go, what? Like, what about your name? So she tells him about changing her name. Then she tells him about dinner. And he was totally, absolutely 100% on board with her changing her name, which this was not just switching it from like Michelle with 2 L's to Michelle with 1 L. This was a very significant change. And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. But the dinner thing, I don't think that's going to fly. I don't think I can handle that. And there was the problem. There was the rub. And I mean, I just thought that was pretty funny. So I'm not sure that dinner idea is necessarily feasible, but
I don't know if it'll work for my husband either.
I don't know if it'll work for too many males, but I thought, wow, this lady is changing her name altogether, and he's fine with that. He's like, I don't care what you call yourself.
That's hilarious.
But I still have an expectation of dinner.
Yeah.
Just saying. I mean, because you have to have priorities. I don't really care what your name is.
Yeah.
I know what you look like.
He's choosing his battles wisely, I guess.
I don't know. So she ended up having to hire someone to make meals because it didn't work. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it does interesting about, and I think so many people would connect with this issue about that there's so much that consumes our lives, right? Of work generally is the number one thing. Usually a lot of people working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and they're so overwhelmed by financial issues, car issues, school issues for their kids, and just all these different things that when the holidays roll around, there is that expectation, and it really becomes a way to assuage guilt for the lack of being in the present with the family, with the children, and just not being there. And that seems like a very easy thing to fall into. And I suspect we've all been in that trap and in that hole a number of times over different times and different years. But that seems like a really big root of the problem, is that assuaging the guilt for not being there a lot of the time when you think you should. And I mean, maybe some of that also comes down to lack of communication with kids about, why is this happening too? I'm not sure that, because we don't want to burden kids with these issues, right? Like, mom's got to work 2 jobs or dad's got to do this. And, it's very difficult. And, sometimes I think we want to protect or keep the kids sort of away from the burdens that affect us. But by doing that, I don't know if we don't also create a trick bag for ourselves that we sometimes can't extricate ourselves from, because we're not telling them the reason why. They just see it. And so they see Sam at the zoo and they're like, well, dad's body's here, but his mind is way far out, and it's not with the tigers or the lions or the gorillas.
Very true. And I've had those discussions with my daughters, and there's many times that are in their memory of where I was there, but missing.
Yeah.
And those are good discussions because they bring healing to the understanding. The intention was not to be there. The intention was to be there, but didn't know how.
I'm all for being transparent and having open communication. And that goes, that applies to my son as well. Yes, he's 8, but I can still have an age appropriate conversation with him about things, because like you said, Tom, otherwise he's going to just see the behavior and see the result of whatever, being stressed out, feeling overwhelmed, or what have you, getting angry, but not knowing what the root of it is, and so forth. So I like to have clear, open communication, but again, age appropriate. And I like to check in with myself before I have the conversation with them. So I make sure it is age appropriate. Otherwise, I mean, I don't feel good about not being transparent, because, everybody, we pick up on energy all the time. We feel other people's energy and without words. And so being clear and open goes a long way.
Well, your son's 8 going on 40 also, so that helps too, right? I mean, he's an
Yes.
extremely brilliant individual. So he may not be able to beat me at bowling or pong, but
I think he is. I mean,
he
yeah.
might in
What
his dreams.
was your highest score for bowling?
83.
Is 83.
83, yeah.
He got 90 the last time we
All
played
right.
together.
Well,
So he's already winning. He's
okay.
already winning. I'm so sorry, Tom, but
Luck may be on his side. I'm
I
just
care
saying
about
that
you. I believe in you. I believe that you can do better.
that remains to be seen, doesn't it? It's
I
like,
know
now
that
I
you
have
were
to.
on a bowling league and that was your highest score. I still believe in you.
That was a bowling class in college. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, bowling class, league, same thing.
Well, it was the only class I got a C in, and so that's always been an issue for me traumatically that I've had to deal with. But
yeah.
So, but I'm working to take Taylor out on the bowling lane because
Good
I think I can get a 92.
Good luck with all your choosing.
I'm confident that I can get there.
Good luck.
So I'm working with Lance Armstrong and trying to get get myself pumped up for this whenever it happens. It's coming up in the not too distant future. So so we're gonna see. So so Sam, you mentioned that you had this conversation with your ex-spouse. How did that go? Because does she live nearby or does she live far away?
She actually lives in Nevada.
Okay.
And she'll be flying in with her spouse. They moved last year. She'll be flying in this year, staying with her mother. And she is definitely interested in it seems. She believes that it's I mean, they're 17 and they're 19. It's an age of, they have some reason, and they both want to be closer, and we all want to be closer to heal some of our past things. And so she is definitely on board with it. How that will fare out, and between who's busy and who's not, we'll see. But it's a starting point. Maybe it's a new tradition. Maybe the experience out of it will be so great that there's no going back, because of the love that someone puts in the intention of the gift. And that is what's important. That's what we've lost. It went straight to expectations, and transparency, like you said, Tavia, really important, because it helps remove trauma that children make in their very, very, very creative minds. Yeah. And it will burn in as that way and begin to close off them. So I think that's the key is transparency when it comes to children and what's going on in the family.
But that brings up another really, really interesting issue. And this is like a stew of a lot of poo-poo, because every one of us is in a divorce scenario, right? Where there's like children that are, spend time apart from one parent and go to the next. And so now, and it's different with every parent, but I know when my daughter was a lot younger, that there was a real pull from the ex-spouse to sort of almost create situations that were really difficult. And so now that you say, of course, your daughters are older, but when they're younger, I could see where that could be a difficult situation to navigate through, because if you have a spouse or an ex-spouse or parent that's not on board with your type of parenting, man, that really spells out some issues.
It really would. Luckily, in my family situation, we divorced amicably. And so we have a great relation in co-parenting. Our beliefs were very similar, not to let them split and divide us, as right. They usually like to do.
They do.
And that has maintained since our separation. But you are right it is so difficult between the different families. Now we have not only our family split, we're in a family that is also of a split family. So the ideology, the thoughts of how things should be, it gets very difficult to manage and navigate through. And what I say to that is just keep it simple. And the other thing is, just like you said, wonder what happened to them.
Well, yeah, that's huge. What do you think, Tavia?
I was just reading some of the comments on Facebook, and we had Tanya chime in, and she was just saying how important this topic is, and how much she appreciates that we are addressing this. What happened to them? It's such an important question to ask when we are out and about or amongst other people. So I just wanted to acknowledge Tanya, and this is up for people, and it can go a long way. Again, and I can go into so many stories where I've seen the importance of asking that very question.
Well, that also kind of leads me to think about the idea that when you have these co-parenting situations, it seems like there's so much energy that's being consumed by one parent in one way or another, thinking that they can, and whether it's by their own thoughts or through things they say to the kids, that they can control what the other parent does or doesn't do. And, it takes sometimes a lifetime to realize that you cannot control what anyone on earth does. You can control yourself and the way you react or don't react.
Mhm.
And I think that I question, what happened to you is a way to help bring that back to home base. Like, wow, because I can't, I mean, Sam, like with your ex, my ex, Tavia's, you can't control what other people do. I mean, there just is no
Yeah.
way to do that. And you couldn't control them when you were with them,
Mhm.
right? Nobody does. I mean, and so, but sometimes there's such a sense because there a lot of times there's a lot of acrimony when people split up with kids, and it's not always Shangri-La. And so a lot of times through that acrimony, one or both parents is constantly vying for which parent is the child's best friend, because it's easy to hook a child with, hey, I'm going to take you to Disney World. I'm going to take you to the zoo. I'm going to get you a box of chocolates for dinner, or, let you eat junk food for all your meals. And so who's going to be the winner in that parenting situation? And it's really, you can't sit down and have an intellectual conversation when you have an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, because they're like, I like the McDonald's. And if you're giving me broccoli and asparagus, I'm going with McDonald's.
But Tom, don't underestimate the fact that women have less resources. They have less things to meet all the expectation that many times the men who make, or the one individual in the family makes more than the other, that when the split happens, many a times the single mother now feels like she can't provide any of the things that they see joy come out in their children when they get gifts or these things that they to experience life. When a single mother, all she has to provide is barely the food and a place over their head. So it gets lost in transition that when a divorce happens, many times the fathers become the pedestal person, the person to look to, because he is able to purchase all these things that feel like love, look like love, but really aren't. And really,
That's a valid point.
So there's a bit of a lot of an imbalance there over the last 100, 200 years.
But there's also this tug of war, right, going on between, and Tavia, I don't know if you see this, but I see a lot of times where they literally are tugging on this rope, right? And you have one on one side of the mud, the other on the other side, and they're both trying to pull the other into the mud. Not because one has more than the other or less than the other. It's because of the angst that's still going on between the two. It's not about the kids. But it's between them. And I have a lot of clients that I see in that situation. And this is what I'm saying about, and this is sort of goes back to what we were talking about with this time of year where parents are feeling so much stress. Look, sometimes you got to let go of the rope and just let the rope go. Nothing's going to happen. If you let the rope go, the other person's just going to fall backwards or fall. You just let it go, because there's no point in pulling. You can't win at this game. It just doesn't work out. But if you let it go and then just focus on your presence of mind
Yes.
and
Yeah.
who you are
Yes.
and doing what you know is the right thing, that is going to send a message. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But you're not going to win anything by constantly having the tug of war going on with the other spouse or partner. It's just never going to pan out.
Yeah, I will definitely chime in on that one. Yeah, when my son's dad and I parted ways, there was a lot of tension, and I'm a very forgiving person. I just was ready to forgive, move on. He was not, and there was a lot of tension, and was really, really intense. And um, at one point, I just finally said, "Hey, you just got to work on yourself. You just got to go inward and work on yourself and um, really heal and tend to yourself and your well being." And I did. And apparently, so did he simultaneously because this huge transformation happened. And that tug of war, that rope got dropped. And now there is this wonderful connection and this beautiful co parenting. And we spend time with Taylor together and do things together. And it's really, really lovely. But, and so this connection was created and in a new way. And so I hear you guys. And I hear what you're saying, Tom, with the tug of war and really needing to bring the focus back to oneself versus looking at the other person. Like, you need to change. You need to do this.
Right. Well, we started out this morning talking about the question, when you see something happening that seems untoward, asking what happened to you. What I
Right.
think you're saying right now, and I think this is really significant, is
Mhm.
we can say that, but what if we say it to ourselves in a
Yes.
benevolent way?
Yeah.
What happened to me? And
Yes.
what I hear you saying is you did the inner work,
Yeah.
and this is what I believe. I don't know who your ex person is, but whoever
Mhm.
he is, I believe that him seeing you, because we tend to mirror each other. And
Yep.
I suspect that he looked at that, and whether you expressly told him you were doing that or he just saw that in you, I think we can set huge examples for other people
Yeah.
by what we do. And he
Yes.
probably said, wow, I'm really impressed with what Tavia is doing. And, he probably will never tell you this, but he probably said, well, what happened to me? Very good
No,
question.
Yeah.
many don't even realize it's occurring. You could take the position of love for yourself, and your children start to see that, and they start to say, "Man, I want that," because what I'm feeling from him now is not what I felt from him before.
And I will say, Tom, that I kept asking that question, what happened to him?
Mhm.
And I knew those answers because he had shared with me and he had opened up and we had gone, in those conversations and deep into those conversations. And like I said, I reached that point where I was like, TV, those answers of what happened to him. So I turned it back onto me, like, what happened to you?
Well, and
Exactly, like what needs tending to. And I totally took a deep dive, and I'm still in that deep dive years later. And yeah, and like, yeah, you went through the transformation too. It's so incredible.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here because this sounds really crazy. What I'm going to say here, but it
Okay.
made me think of it because I was on the plane today
Uh-huh.
at 5 o'clock this morning, and as always, the flight attendants were talking about how to buckle your seatbelt, and they were talking about the oxygen mask, and they were talking about the fact that if the cabin pressure were to have an issue and the oxygen mask popped down, that mom and or dad needs to take the oxygen first before the kids. And that is the exact reason why, and this is why I'm saying this is crazy, because there is such a serious lack of self-connection.
Yes.
And, there's so many people, like Sam was talking about how he was a giver, but you can't truly give to someone else if you don't have it to give, right? Because then you're going
Right.
into debt.
Yes.
So you can't give out what you don't actually have, or you're taking it from someplace else. It's not really genuine. So
Yeah.
I just think that the idea of you asking yourself that question is freaking huge and really significant. I mean, both questions are great, but I just think it's really good to emphasize the importance of our own self-benevolence, especially now as we head to the holidays, and say, man, I don't have to feel like I don't have to be like what I see on Facebook. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you don't see people's messes on Facebook, right? You don't see the filthy kitchen. You don't see the unmade bed. You don't see the people with their clothes tattered and, or if they've come home drunk, right? They're like vomiting all over the floor. You don't see that. You see everybody looking amazing. You see all these great Christmas trees and all candy and love. And,
It's the best corner of the house we could get cleaned up for a
yeah,
picture.
right. You don't see all the rest of it, right? Like, I mean,
That's so
So
awesome.
all we see on social media and TV on these our favorite Christmas shows,
Well,
everything's always perfect,
yeah.
but it's
I
not.
I'm gonna disagree with you. Unless you follow Tavia and you tuned in to Walk the Talk, you know, you got all the mess. You got I
Okay.
almost swore, but we're trying to keep it clean for YouTube. I love to swear, but yeah, unless you tuned in to Walk the Talk and watched my lives that are actually on Facebook, all of them, you got all the dirt, you got all the mess.
Well, all I know, I mean,
Super
I don't know anything.
transparent.
I know most of the time what you do see
But I
are
hear
the
you, Tom.
sparkly things. It's the
But I hear
sparkly
you.
thing.
I
Yeah.
hear you though. I totally agree with you. And then there's those few maybe like me that just let it all out. And yeah,
So
but I hear you.
it's also made me think about this because you remember last week we talked about the study by Bronnie Ware that talked about the top 5 regrets that people have at the time of death or close to the time of death. And
Mhm.
the thing that I was in the Uber this morning going to the airport at 3:30 and a lady named Bernice picked me up, which I thought at 3:30 in the morning, I was surprised that a woman picked me up, but I'm old and that seemed
Her
strange.
name was
So
Bernice.
her name was Bernice, yeah, and she asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said world peace, and then she said, yeah, whatever. I want to know what you really want. And I said, well, I really would like people to have better connections, and so she told me that she had been a cancer survivor 3 times, a 3-time cancer survivor. And she said, you know what, all I want for Christmas, she said, I just want my husband and my kids. And she started crying as she was driving me to the airport. So I probably shouldn't have raised this issue because I put myself in danger. But nevertheless, I mean, that it could not be more true and impactful. I mean, isn't that what we want? Like, because Sam's kids,
Yeah.
they don't want a body that's at the zoo. Like, they want to
Yes.
be with the spirit of the man that's there with them, right?
Right.
That is more important
Yes.
than any Barbie doll, any, I want to say politically correct toys. If I say easy bake oven, I'm going to be kicked off of everything. But whatever kids want, right? I don't know, hula hoops, whatever it is, they don't want that. What they really want is to know that dad's there, mom's there, and or whoever the caregiver is. And those are the things that we remember. I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember the times when family was like there at a holiday. I never think about what I got or gifts. It was
Yeah.
always about the people.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I know somebody that's very dear to me who, has just been doing a lot of reflecting and looking at his life and the importance of his life. And he keeps coming back to family is the most important thing. And this year for gifts, he took all of the videos, all of the pictures that he's ever taken in his life. And he's 55. And he made a video for each person in his family with all of
Wow.
these pictures and videos. It took so much time. He
I
like
bet.
converted them. And I mean, he poured his heart and soul into this project and made individual videos for each person. And I was there to witness some of the family viewing one of the videos. One of the videos. It was incredible, to see people's reactions and to just feel that connection that they all have with each other. And that's what it's about. And he's like, this is the gift that I'm giving this year. These are the gifts. I'm not going to go out and do all of it. I'm like, good, don't. This is more meaningful than anything else. And wow, the reaction from your family was just absolutely beautiful. They
That's
hadn't
amazing.
seen these pictures and videos in such a
Right.
long, long time.
Well, plus they
And
were in one thing rather than having
yes, yes, yeah. It
one
was very,
location. Yeah,
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 absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
that
Yeah,
is that.
it is amazing. And he had talked about doing this last year, and here it is this year, and he just went for it. And I mean, that really speaks to me because when I reflect back on, Tom and I were just having this conversation earlier last week. He's like, "What do you remember about Christmas, Tavia?" And it's not the gifts, it's really the connection with my family. And then if I do remember a specific gift that um, brought me a lot of joy. There was a lot of meaning with that gift. There was actually a lot of it symbolized a connection. The gift actually symbolized connection. And
Totally.
yeah, you and I had a really wonderful conversation about that, Tom. So it's like when I get to the root of it, why this gift is so important to me and still is to this day, and I got it when I was like 6, it's because it symbolizes connection with me and my family that is like eternal and it can never be severed. So yeah,
Right, and no one can take
Amazing.
that from you, right? I
no,
mean,
nobody can take
nobody.
that. Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
say thank
and
you.
that's the thing. And in addition to this study by Bronnie Ware, I've also happened to know a lot of end of life doulas, people that work with hospice patients and people that are end of life, and they all say this exact same thing, that that's what people think about, are their experiences, the people that were in their lives. It's never about anything, any money accumulated, nothing. I mean, it really isn't, because there's nothing that we can take, including the clothes on our body when we go. That's just, there isn't. So I love that gift idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, I just, I really want to say this. I really encourage people to connect with each other, really connect and not be all about the gifts and the things and really take the time to pause this holiday season and beyond this holiday season and really just be in connection with each other, be in each other's presence and be present with each other and see where that energy takes you with one another versus, oh, we have to be here and do this and all these things, and buy all these things. I really just invite people to get present and to really take the time to listen to one another.
And sometimes I heard this a woman named Noli Litton, who is a dream interpreter
Mhm.
in St. Louis, and she was doing this talk one time, and she was talking about how she had this guy that worked for her in a school, and he he was her employee, and I guess she disliked him so much because he was always handing things in late, like things that they had to do and whatever get approved. And she said, I couldn't understand why I had the level of anger and dislike for this guy that I did. And she said, and then I got to thinking about it, and I realized that what I really disliked in him was my shadow and the dark side of me. So this was funny, though. This is what she did. She said, so what I did is, in order to address this with myself, I would get like 10 messages back when they would put that on, on a pink piece of paper, right? There was a telephone message for you, and they would put them on that needle thing on your desk, and you'd come back and there'd be 10 messages. She says, I would take those messages and I would randomly go through them, and I would take 2 or 3 and I would rip them up and throw them in the garbage, and I wouldn't return the calls. I mean, she says, because I realized that I had to address my own shadow, which was the thing that I was hating in this man, that I despise this man. But I saw in myself that it was an issue I had. And so she basically was, like a really like the super type A. And, some of that was to assuage some of the shadow issues. And so she did this. I just thought that was hilarious. And I thought, wow, my point for this is, maybe one of those things, the parties, the events that you think you have to do, maybe take 1 or 2, just like Noli, take 1 or 2 and go, you know what? Not happening. Maybe we're going to watch The Grinch That Stole Christmas instead, and make popcorn, get out one of those appliances like Sam was talking about, buff it up, clean it up, and maybe a Presto Daddy or a George Foreman grill or something, and whip up some food and be a family together and do something, just the 3, 4, 5 of us, instead of going outward to do something that we think we have to do for appearances. And just think a little bit like that. I mean, 1 or 2 things like that each season, I think, could make a difference.
Absolutely.
Well, I think you got to heal the spirit within the family before you could really, really be out giving love amongst the community or in other things. And a lot of times we don't focus on healing and loving the family as much as we need to. Including our, my mom actually started a pretty interesting ideal is on the widows. She's a widower. And there's several widows and widowers in our town. And so she bought, I don't know how many angels, Christmas ornaments, and her and a friend are writing the names of the widow who have passed on them and delivering them to their houses. It's important to remember those folks as well, who've contributed so much and are alone these days.
Right. Absolutely. That's a good point.
Or in nursing homes, making a meal, getting several families together to donate a gift basket for each individual in the nursing home. Because those are the ones that usually end up getting forgotten.
Right.
And everybody deserves to be loved.
Well, it goes back to the connection. And, as I said, here are people in Austin that, are all, in their 30s to 50s and 60s, and they all acted like they had never been around people before. It was just, they were so excited to be connecting. It was amazing to see the energy in that room went from about a 10 to about 1,000 within 24 hours. So it's pretty amazing. Now, Tavia, you had mentioned earlier when we talked before about maybe doing a breathing exercise or two that could help assuage some of the stress that people are experiencing at this time.
I did. And I did not, next time, Tom.
Okay.
It's going to be next time. Yeah. But for now, I'm going to invite people to simply, I was thinking about this before we came on, and, I'm remembering our conversation, Tom, about doing the breath exercise. I'm going to save that for next time. But for now, I'm just going to make this even more simple. I really invite people to, first thing that they do in the morning before they wake up or before they get out of bed, jump out of bed, is just spend a couple minutes in bed, laying there and counting your blessings. And believe me, that list is going to get long real fast. And if you start thinking of the negative things, but there's this and there's that, just bring yourself back, just gently bring yourself back and keep making that list and counting your blessings. And if it feels good, write it out and say it out loud to yourself. And then just feel that that gratitude expand within yourself and outside of yourself and into your home and so forth. And it's a very simple practice. And like I said, every time I do it, just amazingness happens. And I'm in that flow of the giving and the receiving and giving.
Yeah, I have one more to that really has helped me is during the holidays, there are individuals, things that trigger you, get you straight back to a negative or straight into that negative feeling. And what I have started doing, or what I do now, is stopping that anger and going, why do I appreciate this person? Why? What is the first thing I appreciate about them? Why do I appreciate that? Why do I appreciate this? And go down the list. And all of a sudden you get out of that negative thought process that just really rips you out of the heart of really loving and removes that hatred point. And we all have those people who trigger us. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to sometimes stop the, I could strangle them, to go and say, you know what? They showed up today. Someone showed up today in my life. Get to the basic stuff. Keep it simple.
Absolutely. Sam, we're going to wrap up here shortly, so I'm going to take you off the screen. We want to both thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
I appreciate being on.
It's been great. And
thank you so much, Sam.
I really I like that idea that you brought up. I think those are some really good ideas and interesting thoughts for people to consider. So we appreciate it. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam.
So Actually, Tavia, this is kind of exciting. Speaking of breathing,
Yes.
I met a lady named Nydia Darby, who is Native American and Mexican, and she and her husband have a physical therapy and occupational therapy business. They've done this for like 25 years, and have had really great success with that. And she has created a sort of a hybrid type of yoga called therapeutic yoga. Now, I'm not a fan of yoga whatsoever. I mean, I'm really not. And I and fortunately, when I was in the elevator with her, she said, "Well, I mean, men and yoga, she goes, just watch a YouTube video if you want to do yoga." So I said, "Great, thank you," because I appreciate that. I like that. But one of the things that she does specialize in for males and females, which doesn't have to be about yoga, is extremely intentional breathing techniques. And she talks about it, interestingly, not just from breathing to address stress and depression and anxiety and all that, but more importantly, and I almost fell off the chair when she brought this up, but about internal connection, because doing the type of breathing that she teaches, which is all gentle, it's none of this
Mhm.
crazy. I mean, there are some forms of breathing that some were created by one guy is Stanislav Grof, who was big in the psychedelic movement back in the 60s. And so after psychedelics became illegal, he then started this breathing technique that would sort of create a sense that would be some way similar to that of a psychedelic experience. But she has issues with that, and I know a lot of people do. And she said, "I'm not interested in any of that. I don't like any of that. What I do like, though, is for people to really think about the intentionality of breathing,
Mhm.
not once a week or a month, but every day." And it made me think of it when you said about getting up and the gratitude,
Yes.
but breathing, because it's an autonomic process. So we don't think about it. We don't have to think about it, which is great. I mean, I don't want to have to think every time I breathe, but to become more intentional so that a new way of breathing can actually sort of come in and make a pretty significant impact without a whole lot else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I will say this. I mean, I really do want to share some really simple breathing techniques with people. I'll say this for now, really just be aware of, are you breathing from your chest? Is the breath going here to your chest and stopping here, or is it going all the way to your belly? And one way to really monitor that is putting your hand on your stomach. And when you take that big deep breath, you want to feel your belly rise. So you can do that while you're doing your gratitude and counting your blessings and really feeling that expansion in your tummy. And then maybe if you notice that your breath is stopping at your chest, just be gentle with yourself. Just be gentle with yourself. Don't shame yourself like I'm breathing wrong. A lot of people do just breathe from the chest and their breath stops there. A lot of us do. I know that I get stressed out still and, and I will find myself just like, "Oh gosh, I'm short of breath right now." And it's because I'm stopping the breath from my chest area. So I just it's okay. Just bring it back, bring it all the way down, and then completely release. And doing that intentional breath exercise of just breathing all the way into the tummy and breathing out, counting your blessings, letting that energy expand within you. You can even visualize some white light coming in and through and purifying yourself, is also one of my favorite techniques. Yeah.
Nice. Well, this
Thanks,
is
Tom.
seems like a good segue to maybe wrap up and look
Yeah.
to next week. So we're going to do
I
next
I
Sunday.
do wanna say
Oh,
one more thing
sure.
though, something that stood out to me, and I'm gonna try not to cry. Very recently, I was at a place getting some food to go, and the person that was behind the counter, kind of in the back a little bit, was talking to one of his coworkers, and the coworker asked him, "Oh yeah, you weren't at work a couple days ago." "Oh yeah, my mom, she just passed. She just died." This man was back at work like 2 days later. And mind you, before I overheard this, this person was being very attentive, being very kind, um, just totally professional. and really stood out amongst all of his coworkers as being very pleasant. And then I hear him say this to his coworker, and he didn't know I heard this. He still doesn't know that I heard this. I mean, my heart just expanded with compassion. Like, wow, here he is at work, probably because he has to be at
Right.
work to have
Undoubtedly. Yeah.
money, and to keep going.
Right. Have
There's
food for the
so
kids.
many,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so many reasons why he probably had to be at work and continue on. And this, I know, will continue to stay with me as just such a beautiful example of, you know, we don't necessarily know what's going on with everybody and what's happening to them. But what we can do is just get centered, get grounded in ourselves, tend to ourselves so that we can be present and be kind to others. We have to start with ourselves, which we have really been talking a lot about today, Tom, is
Absolutely.
tending to ourselves, tending to our own well being, doing our own healing work, doing our own forgiveness work. And that way we can find those opportunities to then give, be kind, be present, um, do wonderful things in this world as well, and have compassion for other people. And I have just since then been giving this man so much just love and gratitude for, his presence that day and what it did for me and is
Right.
continuing to do for me. I mean, what an inspiration of just like, wow, look at what he's going through. Just this deep pain. You could just feel that he was very connected to his mom, very connected to his mom. It wasn't like, "Oh, my mom that I never see." It was like I
Right.
overheard some of that conversation that he had, and so I just really encourage people to just wake up in the morning, count your blessings, tend to yourself, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, do something really good for yourself. That way you can then give that energy out there into the world.
Hallelujah. I agree. That's, yeah, couldn't say it much better than that.
And then
So
also, if people have any ideas for creating connection, meaningful connection, please let us know. I mean,
absolutely.
again, this show is all about connection, and Tom and I are inviting people to be a part of this discussion with us and to also be guests on the show. So if you have ideas for connections, I mean, Sam had a wonderful idea for the gift giving that I seriously am going to use. I'm like so delighted that he shared that. So if anybody has ideas for connections, and it doesn't have to be about gifts, I mean, anything, please feel free to reach out to Tom and I. You can find us on, well, my page is Tavia Avila Simple, and you can message me there. You can message on this video. And then, Tom, your page is
I
just,
have no idea. I don't get on social media. I have no idea. I'm not even
just
sure how
reach
I
out
have
to
it.
me.
Yeah, just send it to Tavia because I don't even know how I have a Facebook page, but I don't, I really don't. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, just reach out to me for now. Okay, awesome.
All right. Well, so we'll be back 11, or let's see, 9 a.m. Pacific time on the 11th of December.
Is
And
it the
that's
11th?
today's the 4th. So yes, that would be the 11th.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Great.
Hey, we're going for the gusto. So,
Yes.
all right. Well, it was good to see you, Tavia,
Good to
and
see you,
a
Tom.
lot of good stuff on here. So, look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yes. Sounds
All right.
good. Take good care, everybody. Happy holidays.